Factor follow-up segment tonight. Nothing new to report in the investigation surrounding the death of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in Florida, but emotions continue to run very high. Last week, Rich Benjamin, writing in the New York Times, said, quote, "As a black man who has been mugged at gunpoint by a black teenager late at night, I am not naive. Under assault, I didn't dream of harming my teenage assailant, let alone taking his life." Mr. Zimmerman reacted very differently, taking out his handgun and shooting the youth in cold blood. What gives, unquote. Here now is Mr. Benjamin, the author of the book, Searching for Whitopia, An Improbable Journey to the Heart of White America. So you know that I have been criticizing people who convict George Zimmerman on TV. I'm sure you know that, right? You convicted him in print of cold-blooded murder. Don't you have any hesitation? Don't you see that that's not right?
Well, Bill, for me to write that statement, I tried to put myself in the shoes of Trayvon Martin. Now, you and I are adults, but Trayvon Martin was a 17-year-old. Imagine yourself, you're just talking to your girlfriend, you're on a candy run, suddenly an adult comes up to you. Now, this adult has no badge, he has no uniform, he could be on drugs for all Trayvon knows. And then suddenly an altercation starts. So the end result of that is that Trayvon, unfortunately, was murdered in cold blood.
If you had written that, I wouldn't have any problem, okay, except for the last part, murdered in cold blood. You, who weren't there, okay, have just convicted Zimmerman. And you weren't there, you don't know what happened. Now we have a federal agency and we have the state of Florida investigating, all right? And assume that they'll come up with the evidence. We have evidence on both sides that there was an altercation. You have a Florida gun law that stands your ground, okay? So if he was attacked, he would have a right to shoot him. You have all of those things that you continue to say, murder, cold blood. That's wrong. That's just wrong.
It is. Had George Zimmerman taken law enforcement's advice and not chased down this kid.
And that's on Zimmerman. That's on Zimmerman. You can criticize Zimmerman for what's on the record. I don't have any problem with that, and I have. You cannot convict him, as you did in the New York Times, of cold-blooded murder. That's morally wrong.
The kid was killed in cold blood.
He was not killed. You said he was murdered.
That meets my definition of cold blood.
Okay,
now, a legal definition, I would never convict him.
And it wasn't cold blood if there was an altercation. This is purely speculation. Okay, if there was a fight, all right, that's not cold blood. And that's why the hesitation of the Florida authorities to arrest, because they're trying to figure out, during the parameters of the stand your ground law, what actually happened. So let them do that. And the second thing is that by saying he's murdered in cold blood and people reading your words, you're whipping him up. So say he is not arrested or found not guilty. People are going to go out and say racial injustice, and then I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Bill, there's a legal matter, and the courts and the federal authorities and the state authorities will see whether George Zimmerman broke the law. I never said he broke the law, and I don't know whether he broke the law.
You said he was murdered in cold blood. Now, if
the killing was in cold blood. The killing was in cold blood.
And then you just said killing and murder are basically to you the same thing, and they're not. If he is found, Zimmerman's found not guilty in the case, are you going to write an op-ed apologizing for this?
Will I write an op-ed apologizing for it? We'll see what the facts are.
But you consider that?
I would consider it, absolutely.
Right.
But we have to see what the facts are. Because
now you were mugged, right?
I was.
Okay.
I was.
Now, if you were in Florida and you were mugged late at night, all right, and you had a gun, you could have shot that assailant dead. Legally shot that assailant dead.
Right,
okay?
right.
Now, do you find something wrong with that?
For me personally, absolutely, because that is not an eye for an eye. Someone taking my personal property is not grounds for them losing their life.
But that assailant, for all you know, could have had a gun or a knife and killed you.
That's possible.
So you would have put your own life in jeopardy.
That's possible. I'll tell you what I would not have done. And this is the salient point. I would not have behaved like George Zimmerman and chased down someone when the police told me that is not necessary. That's number one.
Absolutely,
number two,
Zimmerman made a mistake. All right, what's number two?
Number two is that, you know, Bill, I saw that gun when I was mugged. It was pointed at me.
You had a guy had a gun on you.
Yes, I would.
And you wouldn't have shot the guy?
He took my wallet, he took my cell phone.
What, if you had a gun, you wouldn't have shot the guy and he's got a gun on you?
Unless I thought my life were in a
He had a gun on you. What do you need?
That's a threat. But
that's a threat?
That is a threat, Bill.
This is where it goes crazy now. Because 90% of Americans, if somebody's coming at them with a gun and they have one, they're going to use it. And they should be able to use it.
On a teenage assailant,
I don't care if he's 4 years old. The guy's got a gun on you.
What I wrote in that op-ed is I do not understand where George Zimmerman is coming from, because I have been staring down the face of a gun, and he wasn't. George Zimmerman was not.
What you did, you did. And as an American, you're entitled to do it. And I'm glad they caught the guy, and I'm glad they got your stuff back.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have done that. If I had a gun and somebody pulled a gun on me and I could have shot him, I'd shoot him. That's the law in America. That's self-defense.
What if they were fleeing? Like Trayvon
it's a whole
or
different thing.
Maya.
Your guy wasn't fleeing, he was taking your stuff.
He took it and left.
All right. You're a stand-up guy for coming in, Mr. Benjamin, and I appreciate it.
Bill.
And we'll check in with you from time to time on this case. Plenty more ahead.